Have you ever noticed that every time something big is about to happen, people always say the same thing? This time is different. Those 4 words have probably caused more financial pain than any other phrase in history. Every bubble, every crash, every panic. They all started with that same idea, that somehow this time the rules of the game have changed, that what happened before will never happen again. But if you look back carefully, you'll realise something that's both terrifying and reassuring at the same time. This time is not different. Right now there's more cash sitting on the sidelines than at any other moment in history. Over $6.5 trillion are parked in what are called money market funds. That's the kind of place where people and big investors keep their cash when they want to earn a bit of interest but don't want to risk losing it. Even Warren Buffett, the so-called Oracle of Omaha, has been hoarding a record amount of cash, over $325 billion. Now you may think, what's the big deal? People are just being cautious, right? They're earning about 5%, which seems decent. But here's where it gets interesting. Every single time in history that this much cash has piled up in money market funds, the same thing followed. The year 2000, right before the dot-com crash. The year 2007, right before the global financial crisis. The year 2019, right before the pandemic recession. And now here we are again. So the question is simple. Will this time really be different? Let's look at the logic behind it. The reason so much cash is being parked right now is because interest rates are high. A 5% return might not sound incredible, but when you compare it to what the stock market is giving, it actually looks quite good. The S&P 500's earnings yield, basically the return investors get from owning stocks, is around 3%. So right now, holding cash actually gives a better return than being in the stock market. That's unusual, and when that happens, something strange starts to occur. People stop taking risks, they stop investing, they stop building, they prefer to keep their money safe. It's a bit like everyone deciding to stay inside because it's raining, and then realising the streets are empty, the shops are closed, and nothing's moving anymore. The economy begins to slow down, not because of some disaster, but because people are saving too much. This idea isn't new. A famous economist, John Maynard Keynes, once said that the tendency to save can defeat its own purpose. When everyone saves, demand disappears, companies stop hiring, and growth dries up. That's exactly what we're seeing today. Big corporations aren't spending their cash. They're not expanding. They're waiting. And that waiting creates the calm before the storm. But not everyone agrees with Keynes. Another great economist, Milton Friedman, argued the opposite, that savings are the fuel of growth, that when people save, they give the economy the resources it needs to invest in bigger projects later on. And he's right too, at least for a while, because after every downturn, it's those who saved that have the power to rebuild. That's the paradox of what's happening now. The world is hoarding cash at record levels, just like before every major recession in history. But that cash will one day flood back into the system. It always does. And when it does, it will either spark a massive recovery or an even bigger bubble. Either way, it's never a calm ending. If we look back through history, we can see a clear pattern. Every time real interest rates, that means interest rates adjusted for inflation, are positive and high, like they are now, the economy tends to slow down. That's because people prefer to save rather than spend. But when those real interest rates eventually turn negative, when inflation is higher than the return on cash, people rush to put their money to work. They buy assets, they invest, they spend. And that's when the boom starts again. Think about the last few decades. Before the 2000 crash, interest rates were high and real returns positive. Money piled up in cash. Then rates fell and that money poured back into stocks, creating the dot-com bubble. The same happened before the 2008 crisis, and again before the pandemic. In all those moments, people thought the rules had changed. They said, this time is different. But history doesn't care what we believe. It repeats itself over and over with frightening precision. Today, real interest rates in the US are around 2%. That might sound small, but in economic terms, it's huge. It's enough to slow spending, enough to make companies cautious, and enough to keep trillions of dollars sitting idle. That's why beneath all the optimism and record stock prices, there's an invisible tension building up. Just a little break, I opened a free Telegram community where I teach how to earn money with YouTube and build channels like the one you're watching. If you want to understand how to do it, there's the link below. Back to before. The stock market is climbing, yet the economy underneath is quietly losing its breath. And when you see both things happening at once, the market rising while savings explode, you know the cycle is nearing its end. Because money doesn't stay still forever. When it moves fast. Right now there are two possible futures. In the first one, a recession hits soon. Interest rates fall, real returns turn negative, and all the cash that's been sitting in the shadows comes rushing back into the market. It sounds good, but it's also painful, because recessions destroy jobs and confidence before the recovery begins. In the second scenario, the economy keeps holding up, and rates stay high. That's what we saw in the mid-1980s, the late 1990s, and briefly before 2007. The markets can still thrive for a while in such an environment. But as history has shown, it never lasts forever. Eventually something breaks, and that's the core message behind the phrase, "This time is not different." It's a reminder that no matter how advanced our economy becomes, how much data we have, how many experts make predictions, human behaviour doesn't change. Fear, greed and hope, they drive everything. Right now, fear is dressed up as caution. People say they're being smart by keeping their money in cash, but deep down it's fear. Fear of losing, fear of being wrong, fear of another crash. And ironically, that fear is what usually creates the crash itself. Because when everyone tries to play safe at the same time, the system suffocates. Let's take a simple example. Imagine everyone in your town decides not to go out for dinner this week. Restaurants lose money. They cut staff. Those staff have less income, so they buy less from the grocery store. The grocery store then buys less from suppliers, and suddenly the whole town slows down. That's what happens when saving becomes the main goal of an economy. It looks stable from the outside, but underneath things are starting to crack. And yet, here's the mystery. Even with all the warning signs, markets keep going up. The S&P 500 continues to rise, jobless claims are low, and investors seem confident. That's exactly how it looked in 1999, exactly how it looked in 2007. The data was strong, unemployment was low, people said the fundamentals are solid, but the signs were already there, hidden in plain sight. The massive cash piles, the overconfidence, the belief that the system was unbreakable. What we're witnessing today isn't new. It's a replay. The characters change, the headlines change, the technology changes, but the story's always the same. It's the story of people believing they can outsmart the cycle, that they can avoid what always comes next. But the market has a way of humbling even the smartest minds. Remember the words of Buffett himself. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. Well, right now people aren't greedy. They're cautious. They're waiting. And that's the part of the story where the next chapter usually begins. If you want to know how close we are to the turning point, watch one simple thing. The flow of cash. When the money starts leaving money market funds, when people start moving that 6.5 trillion back into stocks and risk assets, that's when the next big wave begins. But it's also the moment of greatest danger, because that's when the herd returns. That's when optimism blinds judgment. And when that happens, people will once again start saying those same four words. This time is different. They'll find new reasons, new explanations, new data to convince themselves that what happened before can't possibly happen again. But you'll know better. You'll know that this time is not different at all. It's the same pattern, wearing a different face. So if you take one thing from this, let it be this. History doesn't repeat perfectly, but it rhymes. And right now the rhyme sounds very familiar. Cash piling up, markets soaring, confidence growing, quiet warnings ignored. We've seen this before. And every time it ended the same way. Be careful when everything feels safe, because that's usually the moment when the floor starts to shake. This time is not different. It never was. It's just happening again. And nobody talks about it. Like nobody is talking about the fact you're not subscribed yet. Smash that subscribe and like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I also want to remind you that if you want to build a YouTube channel, like the one you're watching now, and make money from it, I opened a free Telegram community with the link below. See you there, or in the next video. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend on your own decisions and actions.